Welcome to TWItWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans by wrestling fans on the web today. I am John alongside my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Monday Night Raw review. And I gotta tell you, folks, to me, this is a very enjoyable 3 hours. This was the go home show before Payback this Sunday. And if this Raw was any indication, Payback is shaping up to be one hell of a fun pay per view. What do you think, Ashton?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Payback, but there were some things about this Raw that really bugged me, so let's get into our first segment.
All right, then. With that said, let us get right into Heat of the Night. And I've got absolutely no heats of the night tonight, so let's hurry it along to my cohort and commentary here, Ashton. What is the thing that really bugged you, brother?
WWE's booking is starting to feel an awful lot like late 90s, early 2000s WCW to me.
Okay, provide some examples, because I really wasn't too intimate with that era, so kind of frame it for us.
Just other than the absolute obvious jobbers a la Zack Ryder and, in an unfortunate case, Damian Sandow, they're trying to protect everyone way too much. Nobody can lose clean anymore. It's just, and the whole Orton Batista Rhodes Brothers thing was overbooked all the crap, and it just is starting to feel a little bit too convoluted, and everything is kind of starting to lose meaning.
I can see where you're going with that. You know, on the Rhodes Brothers thing, it's interesting you say that because we know that, before that tag match, there was a backstage segment between the Rhodes Brothers and Batista and Orton. The Rhodes Brothers were going to come in, demand that they have a spot on Raw tonight, and they were going to do it by way of an open challenge. You thought it would have been awesome if that was the platform to introduce the Ascension, and I agree. Like, I got excited, like, oh, are they really going to go through with this? But then Triple H said, oh, you're going to have a match with these guys, and it's not going to be an ordinary match. He didn't expound upon that point in that segment, so I thought, oh, honestly, what I thought it was going to be was that their jobs were going to be on the line and they didn't even know it. Because it was kind of like the anniversary of their firing and everything, and I thought Triple H was going to abuse his power again, and maybe Cody would turn heel that way just to preserve his job somehow. I don't freaking know. But what they ended up doing, I mean, it made sense in the context of the match that they're having with the Shield, but I definitely see what you mean by overbooked.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing was we had I believe it was two consecutive. Yeah, we had two consecutive matches where the person who won had literally no place winning against who they were going against, and they did it in a way that still sort of protected the other person. Of course, I'm referring to Eva Marie pinning Summer Rae because of a distraction, and El Torito pinning Drew McIntyre again because of a distraction. Um, I don't like it when this kind of finish happens at all, but then to do it two times in a row, I couldn't let it go.
No, and I completely understand. It's like, it's like I remember saying one time to you with pay-per-views or some kind of show where you do the same finish like twice in one show, whether it's like a DQ finish or something like that. It's really, it lacks creativity, it lacks any kind of imagination, and it gets overused very quickly. So I can understand your grievances, and yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from with your heat of the night tonight.
Well, that's not my only heat of the night, unfortunately.
Oh, we got two. Wow. All right, what's your second one?
The Cena Wyatt segment.
Oh, we're gonna do this right now. Okay, well, I'm glad you brought it up because, to be honest, I still have mixed feelings on Cena's part. So why don't you tell us what you're feeling?
Believe it or not, Cena's part wasn't what ticked me off. The booking is what ticked me off. So again, it comes back kind of to my first heat of the night.
Okay, now what specifically about the booking? The involvement of Jerry Lawler?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
And really, to me, I'm not one of those people who is just enough of a mark to think that Jerry Lawler hadn't agreed to this and that they shouldn't have done it because of his heart condition. He knew full well what was going to happen going into this, so there's no question about that. Problem
Right.
that I have is twofold. First of all, um, Bray Wyatt needs to decide and really I shouldn't say Bray Wyatt because it's not him. It's the booking. It's the writers that need to decide if they want Bray Wyatt to be an anti-hero or a flat out hateable freaking heel. Because he crossed that line tonight. He went from somewhat vague anti-hero who you could really get behind because he was going against somebody that you could really, some people at least, I'd say a good chunk of people have the capacity to hate. And tonight he went full blown heel. And I do like that they're bringing somebody up as a true heel, but with the kind of momentum that Bray Wyatt had as a babyface, as an anti-hero, it just doesn't make sense that they would use him in that role.
Yeah, I found that intriguing as well because you could tell by Cena's promo tonight where he pretty much says that the power that you've gained has made you sick, and it's sick that you would attack an innocent man simply because he disagrees with your beliefs. You can pretty much tell that the mindset they're going with Bray Wyatt now is that of like a dictatorial mindset. It's like where they disagree with you and you smash them down. And I guess that's the kind of heel that Bray is going to be. Like, all who oppose me shall burn. And it's nice that you've got a definitive direction for him, but I agree because the vibe he was giving off before and the vibe that people loved about him so much, including, as I always like to reference, Forbes.com, was that nobody could decipher what Bray was. By really boxing him in with his actions tonight and Cena's promos to really frame it, I think he's lost some of that flavor that makes us love him so much, at least in my
Thank
opinion.
you. Thank you for properly articulating what I was trying to say. That's exactly what it is. Tonight, Bray Wyatt became human.
Yeah, he got humanized. He went from an enigma, a shadow of sorts, to becoming anthropomorphic in the sense of a personality, of drives and everything else. And that's not. See, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just don't know if Bray Wyatt fits that mold. Like if
It's
it was a,
not a bad
you know,
thing if you're looking at it in a vacuum, but in the context that it's in, with Bray Wyatt being the person that we're talking about, it is a bad thing.
Yes. See, I articulated your thing, you articulated my thing, because that's just it. Like, you have to look at the whole animal that is Bray Wyatt and not just this isolated incident. And when you look at the entirety of it all, it just feels so out of place.
To
It feels like,
me, to me, this feels like what happened when Muhammad Hassan went from Raw to SmackDown and went from angry Arab American to flat out terrorist.
yeah, how apropos is it that you and I were discussing him before Raw, and he fits so snugly with the problem here with Bray Wyatt? Because I completely agree. And you know what? And I know you didn't like it the first time, and now I'm starting to not like it. If you notice, Bray Wyatt even said while John Cena was on the microphone, he shouted to John Cena, "I am a god." Like, that's not Bray Wyatt. This is the second time that he's done it that I've personally picked up on. Uh,
This is the
you know,
third time that he said that.
third time.
Well, the
Okay, well,
first time was a little while ago. It was when he was saying, if you look down at me, you will see blah, blah, blah. If you look up at me, you will see blah, blah, blah. But if you look me square in the eye, you'll see me for what I really am, a god.
right.
Do you remember that promo?
Yeah, I remember that promo. That was the first time I was referring to. And then again, this incident tonight. This is the second time that I
He
personally
said it
remember.
again. He said it again last week, I think, at one point.
Oh, okay. So yeah, like that whole direction that makes me uncomfortable because I've never gotten that vibe from Bray Wyatt whatsoever.
Well, and that's the thing, dude. Here's what I'm kind of saying about Bray Wyatt as far as what he used to be. I can't speak on what the WWE wants him to be now. In FCW, he had a very Charles Manson, Jesus figure character. He said something about how people said that a man 2,000 years ago didn't exist and he changed the world and that kind of stuff. And he's saying, I am everywhere and I am all this stuff. Basically saying that he is the second coming, basically, but in heel form. So really like the Antichrist, I guess you could say. Then
Right.
On NXT, he really did feel more like a cult leader, and he had the NXT crowd practically in his cult because, like, he was the king of the world in NXT. I don't think I've ever seen anybody get a better response from a crowd than Bray Wyatt in NXT. especially that last promo that he cut. Well, second last now that they tried to duplicate it and ended up ruining it. But you get the idea. Um, and now he kind of started out as the cult figure, and he kind of started working his way towards the Charles Manson Antichrist thing. But now he's neither, and it's not that good.
And it's such a shame because a lot like Adam Rose, who we've talked about, a lot like, in my opinion, a Damian Sandow. They can really try and really put their backs into making those kinds of directions work. But it just loses some of its organic nature to me. Like when you were saying about cult leader and Charles Manson, that's the immediate vibe I got the first time I ever saw Bray Wyatt. Just laid eyes on him, didn't even hear him speak. When I started to hear him speak, I'm like, oh man, this guy's really he's deranged. He's an enigma. He's, I guess, this all powerful thing. But I never really went into like religious territory. And see, now I am, and I don't like it because it's like trying to force that puzzle piece in the puzzle, and it's just not where it's supposed to be. That's kind of Bray Wyatt with this whole character dressing, as I'll call it, in this feud with John Cena. And what's even worse, like for me personally, is that John Cena cuts this promo. Again, I still have mixed feelings about it because of how it boxes Bray Wyatt in, and again, as we said, humanizes him. But I think more so than that, for me personally, on John Cena's part, I just think it's too little too late. Like, this was the Raw go-home show, and just now you're beginning to see the threat that Bray Wyatt truly is. And what I love even more is that it took an attack on Jerry Lawler, who you and I both agreed that if they were really going to go this route, which I just feel like it was overdone as well, it should have at least been Michael Cole given their relationship.
But they couldn't use Cole because they were trying to do it to get Bray heel heat, and Cole is generally disliked.
Right, yeah, and my friend James told me the same thing, so that's two people bringing that to my attention. You're absolutely right. But at the same time, like, it takes an attack, or an almost attack, because it was thwarted, on Jerry Lawler for John Cena to take him seriously, but yet a children's choir singing to you and one child costing you your cage match at Extreme Rules and you're still making jokes. Like, I'm sorry, too little too late. Like, a lot of this just seemed backwards to me. I still am really looking forward to their last man standing match at Payback and this and that, but honestly, there is a part of me that's looking forward for this program to just be over so that these guys can move on.
But
It's
that's the thing,
crazy.
though, dude. When they do move on, where is there for Bray to go? Like, how does Bray Wyatt move on from John Cena? Is there anywhere upwards for him to go? Is he going to go after the title? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't seem like something that his character would go after. I just don't understand where they're going to go with him. Cena's going to be fine. Cena,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter whether Cena wins or loses at Payback. He's going to move on to the next top heel that the WWE wants to get over. Probably, honestly, if you want me to be serious, Cesaro seems like a very viable next contender for the John Cena feud program, whatever you want to call it. But as it is right now, where does Bray Wyatt go from here? I mean, like I said, win or lose, Cena can go anywhere. But if Bray Wyatt, even if we'll start on the positive side, if Bray Wyatt does win this match, what does that prove? What does he get out of that?
Well, I can answer you this in two ways. I can answer you this in the way that Bray Wyatt's character would perceive the victory, which would be the annihilation of the C Nation. Like he said, whoever loses this match is trapped with their thoughts and their failure for all eternity. Answering it to you as an objective analyst here on our forum, I don't really even know anymore. I don't, because we just got done talking about how they're boxing Bray Wyatt and they're giving him characteristics that just don't seem to jive well with him. But yet it's only because of those characteristics, if you want me to be honest, that I could see him going after the championship after this. Because if he's really a god, then it logically follows that he'd want to gain power in whatever form it takes that he possibly can. When you're the champion, you're, perceived as the top dog, the guy. So I could see Bray lusting after that power after John Cena, if you want me to be honest. So I think if he does beat Cena, objectively speaking, I think the gold is his next target, no matter who's wearing it. And Daniel Bryan's controversy is a whole other thing, which we'll get into later with those respective segments. But yeah,
All
that's what
right,
I think the next
and
target is for Bray.
suppose that Daniel Bryan does manage to get stripped of the title somehow. We have Money in the Bank, and we'll say we're going to go with my idea: two Money in the Banks, one for the title, one for the briefcase. say Bray is in the title Money in the Bank. If he wins, it's, in my opinion, it's still too early. But if he wins, then they can work with that. But if he loses, who does he go? Like, I just don't understand. Like, to me, I don't know. I feel like there's no clear cut direction for Bray Wyatt's character to go after he either A, overcomes, or B, gets overcome by literally the top guy in the company. I don't know. Maybe it's a case of too much too quickly, but I feel like after Wyatt is done with Cena, he's directionless.
And see, I feared this. Like, this was a fear I had for Bray Wyatt because the thing is, you and I have praised Bray Wyatt and sent him over the moon with our compliments. He's so good at so young, to be that skilled at only 26, this and that. The problem with that, though, is that the one time that they should really take their time with somebody and maybe really inch him towards the top, they really accelerate him there. And that's the tragedy because when you get to the top, there's only one place to go, and that's down. Personally, I loved your idea of two ladder matches. You know that because we talked about it. I would put him in the Money in the Bank one for the briefcase and have him win that. Who wins the championship is anybody's guess. I mean, we don't even know what's going to happen with Bryan, period, which has got me very intrigued. But I mean, even if he were to win the briefcase, hypothetically, let's reverse the situation. He wins the briefcase. We're still left with the same question: what does he do before he cashes in? And that's a difficult question to answer because we've already said that we believe that he's above the world title. Well, in that case, he's certainly above either the U.S. or the IC championship. I really have no interest in seeing him feud with Sheamus at the moment because I like what Sheamus is doing with Cesaro and what he could do with other competitors. So I really don't know, and I really am beginning to think that you're right that it is a case too much too soon, and that petrifies me.
Well, let me be perfectly clear here. I'm not complaining. I enjoy Bray Wyatt's work, so I'm not complaining that he is in the spot where he is. I'm just concerned that the WWE isn't going to be able to come up with somewhere for him to go that will not be a step down from where he currently is.
Oh no, absolutely. Like I'm right there with you. I'm enjoying what Bray's doing. I have said consistently on here, episode after episode, this is my favorite feud, and I'm really glad he's gotten to work with Cena, and that they're going to have a match like this at Payback, where I really expect him to go all out and tear the house down.
Yeah,
The
but
problem,
that's what scares me though, because the last guy to have a match like this against John Cena is currently part of a jobber tag team and wasn't even on Raw tonight.
right? I mean, it's difficult because the thing is, it's not a matter of not enjoying when you're a guy or just a person whose work you admire is on top. The issue is how do they stay on top? Because they only have so much control over that. It's got to be up to WWE Creative or whatever thinking minds assemble these storylines to say, hey guys, Bray's just beaten our number one guy, or hell, he's even just lost to our number one guy. Now we know Bray can protect himself from a loss, or he can look like $1,000,000 to the win, but the same question remains: where does he go from here? And I'm really quite nervous what those deliberations could yield. Hopefully, it's something good because Bray does deserve the very best with how good he is.
Dude, this
But
is gonna sound kind of weird, but I almost feel like Bray Wyatt as a character would almost be better off losing to Cena.
as a character, yeah, and God, there are going to be so many hard matches to call at Payback when you and I get to our preview and predictions. But I don't know. Because, look, the fact is, if we're having a very honest discussion about this, you and I both know Cena's character is not going to change. I mean, people use the word progression. What progression? What progression could there be if he lost? Because, a loss like that, with the way this feud has been built, should devastate Cena and force him to reevaluate all of his premises, all of his beliefs, everything, and either a heel turn would emerge from that or just something different. But we know neither of those things is going to happen. I'm not even entertaining the notion. So to me, because Cena can't progress objectively, I will have to say that I do think Bray is losing at Payback, and for those reasons, it may even be better because Bray is still young. You know he's going to evolve, and as we've said time and time again, he can protect himself from a loss. However, as a fan, I'm rooting for him wholeheartedly, so it
Right,
really is a
and
conflict.
well, that's good reasoning on your part. The reason I think that he would be better off with a loss is because if Bray Wyatt wins, what does he gain from it? yeah, he beat John Cena, but so many other people have beaten John Cena and then gone on to do absolutely nothing. That I don't know. Like, if you beat John Cena, Cena then no sells it, and you look worse for wear. Like, you say Wyatt can protect himself from a loss, but Cena takes that to a new extreme. The way that Cena protects himself from a loss is by making it seem like the other guy lost in the first place. So if Wyatt does lose, sure, he can protect himself from that loss, but then at least Cena isn't going to be prancing around joking about Wyatt like nothing happened, even though he lost to him, if he would.
Right, right. It's so infuriating, and it's one of the reasons why I've been so angry with Cena recently, because everything you just said is right on the money. I mean, you're the top guy, and you have said in serious interviews that when you leave this business, you want to leave it in a better state than when you arrived. Well, you don't do that by making a joke of somebody whose gimmick is supposed to be this eerie, uh, really threatening force, so to speak. And I felt like it had the potential to be such a great story because,
You
Bray
know what
Wyatt, everything.
shocks me?
What shocks you?
That Cena hasn't whipped out the Husky Harris card yet.
Yeah, really. I'm even surprised he hasn't made like a subtle nod towards that. To be honest, but I don't know, dude. Like there are so many questions right now in the WWE landscape, and I think this is a consequence. And it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining about it. Better than to have a bare bones roster like TNA seems to be facing at the moment. But I think this is a consequence of when you have so many guys, but not necessarily enough to do.
It's a
Like if
case of having too many guys and not enough actual top guys. It's a matter of having one too many pawns and not enough kings.
that, let's just end on that. That's excellent. Yeah, I'm not even touching that. So were those your only two heats of the night?
Yep.